Your crimes, Mark? Yes, what are your crimes, Mark? Did you beat your wife? Did you kick a pup? We'll find your crimes and rake it up. Did you laugh at Hubbard? That's not nice, and now you'll have to pay your price. So will your crimes, Mark? What have you done? Oh, it's too late now. Fair game's begun.
I don't think anyone's caught on yet that my mic's working fine. I just was pretending to talk because that's the type of jokester I am. Hello, everybody. Let's see. I hope everyone has come back. Nobody in the comments yet? I'm patient. I'll wait. Here at Xenu TV, we take pride in our pausing and waiting. Something that I've mastered. Oh, look, we are here. Speaking for everybody is, let me put these on, S. Robichaux, 82, or senior. Okay. Hello. Nice you're here. JB808, there you are. Hello, Patrick Ryan. Where's John? Where is John? John, come here. We need you. Hitzel. Hey there. Things seem to be working better now. I hope so. When I shut down the computer, it said, you need to do an update. So I'm hoping, oh, thank you. I'm glad that I accidentally got that right. Thank you. You know, just can you please learn to spell your own SIG or maybe your real name? I won't give any trouble. So I shut down the computer and said, oh, you need to do an update. So hopefully that cured everything. And I rebooted the modem too. So, it's smooth sailing from now on. Same thing happens over at PBS. You know, occasionally they have to unplug the network and then reboot the entire PBS empire. Maybe. All right. So I was saying, and this may anger the person who wrote to me, and it's not meant to do that. But somebody had been emailing me with idea of how to take down Scientology, and as with virtually every email I've got, I have not had a chance to even read, let alone respond to the majority of them. And today he wrote back and said, "Okay, you probably don't believe I'm who I say I am. So here's my name, and here's the plan." He thought that if we could just get Elon Musk to take on Scientology, that would be it. He and Trump could shut that whole quasi-religion down. And I tried to point out that Trump has massive Scientology donors who hang out with him at Mar-a-Lago. Like, oh God, what's her name? Woman here who's got a glass museum. And she's one of the biggest donors to Scientology, and she's, I think, been appointed to Trump's Lincoln Center board of directors. But then his attorney, his private attorney who represented him in a lot of the cases during the 4 years he was out of office. It's a shame it was only 4. But this attorney is a major Scientologist from a Scientologist firm, and he's now his envoy to Russia. So there's enough Scientologists surrounding Trump, and with their deep pockets, I don't think that Trump and Musk are going to apply a chainsaw to Scientology's tax exemption at all. I mean, it'd be great if it did, but good luck. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some folks out there who agree that, oh, Elon Musk, he can do it. Where is John Carmichael? Well, he's here on my computer. That I can tell you. I think he's still around. I don't think John has gone the way of Hebrew Jench, hidden away somewhere. I don't know if he's high profile anymore. I don't think I've heard anything about him anytime recently. Lupita, hello. And hello. Whatever happened to Mary DeMoss? She's happy and carefree. She's out of Scientology. She's living, last I heard, in the Boulder area and doing activism for other social issues, not Scientology. Angry Gay Pope, somebody is asking about him, and Davy Jones says Angry Gay Pope chilled out and is simply now Gay Pope. And that's probably the best. His shouting technique was never anything that I favored, but you do you. And I was looking at some video from Gold the other day, and it's video I'll put together for the channel again, because it hasn't been up in a long time. But there was one protest out at Gold where Andreas Lund was there. And I think that was the day that Angry Gay Pope stomped on some flowers in the garden bed there. I think. Not positive, but I do have footage of that when he did that. Is Bob Duggan still a Scientologist? Thank you, by the way, for coming up with the Duggan family name. I think so. They have just separated, he and his wife, and she seems to be the big donor. I haven't heard that he's left, but then I don't check up on them that often. And Trish Duggan is the wife, the woman who is right there in Trump land. Oh, Davey, there you are. Hi, Davey. He's disappointed that the Chinology Anon seem to have disappeared. Yeah, well, it's a shame, but people move on. Unless you're me, you tire of this at some point and you get on with your life. I find this to be a pleasant hobby. Kelly says, I think that AGP has cleaned up his style somewhat these days. I heard that. And I think it's good to do that. I'm not familiar with this person, so their name caught me off guard. LOL. Which person are we talking about? How's my health? It's not bad. My voice continues to crack with age. I continue to want to be back on stage belting songs out. And yet I got a frog in my throat just talking. It's an old guy voice. All right. Just checking out who else is here. Hitzel. Welcome back. Lupita, Patrick Ryan asked me, where's John Carmichael? I do not know. All right. So I think the whole family is back now. And I just wanted to share this radio show with you. It's from the John and Ken show in LA. And I think they were syndicated across the country, but they were like I think the top broadcasters in LA at this point. And they had Bob Minton on to talk about his activism against Scientology. And he takes up the first segment of the show. And I got to say, listening to it again today, they're a little tough on Bob. They keep going, well, why are you doing that? What are you upset about? And Bob's trying to explain, and well, so what? And then John Carmichael comes on, and they do pretty much the same thing to him. And then the fireworks go back and forth, where Carmichael keeps talking over Bob, and Bob occasionally talks over Carmichael. And it gets into a fight that John and Ken have to stop. So I think it'll be an interesting show to listen to. It also is at a period where Bob had just started having a relationship with Stacey Brooks, and he touts the help that he gave to Stacey and Vaughn, her husband at the time, by buying them a home for their cat sanctuary to get them away from Scientology. And eventually, Bob and Stacey became a couple. Reverend Carmichael was right on top of that. And he's a judgy type of character, So, so that makes it interesting. What do we have going here? Hello says, thanks for answering all the questions. Amazing. How is Marty and his wife? I don't know. I would say they're fine. And they adopted a kid too. And I would think that everybody's fine. He's working with Scientology. So there's that. But I'm sure two of them are living their lives. Yeah, he did go back to Scientology. I don't know that he's online taking courses or anything like that, but he has been more than welcome, more than happy to sit down and do videos ripping into everyone he was helping there for a while. And hellos from the Squirrel Buster days. Those were the days, weren't they? All right. So let's take a listen to this show, shall we? I hope you enjoy it. I'll pop in from time to time and share some insights. So here we go.
This is the John and Ken Show. Welcome. How you doing? I want to email us. It's john-ken@primenet.com.
I got to tell you, one thing that happened when I improved the quality of the sound, I did realize that there was not a curse word at the opening of this. So when they say, that's the John and Ken Show, and the guy goes, welcome, it certainly sounded more like an FM with the original quality of tape. What the? No, that can't be. But listen again. It's a sparkling welcome.
This is the John and Ken Show. Welcome. How you doing? I want to email us. It's john-ken@primenet.com. john-ken@primenet.com. You've heard about the Church of Scientology?
Yeah,
controversial church. A lot of that celebrities belong, including John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Lisa Marie Presley. And there's supposedly 9 million people in this church. And it's based on the writings and the thoughts of L. Ron Hubbard, a science fiction writer. He founded it in 1954 in L.A. He wrote a book, Dianetics, It was a big bestseller. That was the basis of his philosophy. And the philosophy starts off with the idea that traumatic memories in past lives could be cleared through church counseling.
Past life. That's what the Associated Press says here.
Right. The Church of Scientology has always been kind of vague to you. Right? Kind of vague to me. I didn't really know a lot either.
They're always in the headlines because there's people who hate it, who say it's not a religion, but it's a cult.
Aren't the Germans really upset over the church? I believe the Germans have banned the church from Germany, and it's such an ugly battle that John Travolta appealed directly to the Clinton administration to try to use some diplomatic pressure to get the Germans to back off. And the IRS was at war with the Church of Scientology for years, claiming that it's not really a church, so it shouldn't have a tax exemption. Eventually, it got the tax exemption. The latest incident that's gotten more press is actually happened in 1995. A woman named Lisa McPherson was a Scientologist who died in the Clearwater, Florida area. The critics say that she was forced to stay for 17 days at a Scientology hotel against her will. And the guy that we're going to talk to, Robert Minton, is very suspicious of the way Lisa McPherson died.
He'd be on a 3-year campaign, what he calls expose the church. He'd actually used more than $2 million of his own money to support church enemies, and he has an offer of $360,000 as a reward for information that would revoke their tax-exempt status, and now he faces a trial.
Well, he's conducted a war against the Church of Scientology, and it's gotten ugly because the Scientologists, they fight back. They hire private detectives to investigate you. They have passed out flyers denouncing him, rallying outside his home in New Hampshire. It got to the point where Robert Minton fired shots into the air trying to disperse the protesters.
We're getting there really here. He got.
By the way, Bob didn't start a war with Scientology. Bob started helping people who were abused by Scientology, and Scientology started a war with him. He just had, the financial wherewithal to take them on in a serious manner, including backing a bunch of different people in their lawsuits. There you go. Oh.
He's conducted a war against the Church of Scientology, and it's gotten ugly because the Scientologists, they fight back. They hire private detectives to investigate you. They have passed out flyers denouncing him, rallying outside his home in New Hampshire. It got to the point where Robert Minton fired shots into the air trying to disperse the protesters.
We're getting there really here. He got into a scuffle outside of a church with a member of the Church of Scientology, and it resulted in assault charges against Minton.
So we're going to have him on here because we were curious, why is a millionaire who has no direct connection to the church suddenly declared war on the church against people who are basically exercising their right to worship. It may not be a conventional church along the lines of Catholicism or Judaism or Protestantism, but, it's their church. So, what's his beef here? Why is he getting involved? Robert Minton, welcome to John and Ken Show.
John and Ken, it's really nice to be here, and you guys are really on top of this whole situation, it sounds like.
Well, I'm basing what we said on newspaper reports that we have. And
my first question is just to rephrase what I just said. You're a millionaire. You got your life. You're successful. Why are you taking on a war with the Church of Scientology? Why do you care what they do?
Well, it's my beef with Scientology has always been a free speech issue, and that is that anybody has a right to criticize policies of the Church of Scientology and practices of Scientology, but Scientology labels everybody who criticizes them a criminal. And therefore, you or myself don't have the right to speak out against the Church of Scientology's policies. And I think that's completely wrong in a democratic society.
All right, wait a second. So you criticize them, then they criticize you and call you a criminal. That's within their free speech too, isn't it?
Well, it is, but of course, everybody who criticizes them is a criminal, whether you've got criminal background or not.
Well, so they call you a criminal. How does that really impact? Is that some sort of slander you can't live with?
Well, no, I can live with it, but I'm just talking about the paranoia of this organization. You know, when I was first interviewed a little over a year ago by the New York Times, the New York Times were told that I was an agent of the German government funneling money in the United States to destroy the Church of Scientology. I mean, this is the level of paranoia that these guys are.
Well, you didn't explain to me what ignited you, though. What started all this? Because you were not a member ever of the church.
I've never been a member, but back in January of '95, I was a member of the Electronic Frontier Foundation up in San Francisco, which is a sort of an internet advocacy, free speech group, and they commented on the fact that the Church of Scientology tried to illegally cancel a news group on the internet. Now,
And this news group was critical of the church.
well, this news group was the first forum that was ever created for former Scientologists to get together and talk about the hell that they went through while they were inside the Church of Scientology.
And how did the Scientologists try to shut down the news group?
Well, they had an attorney who works for them named Helena Coburn issue an illegal message through the internet to pretend to cancel this news group as though she were some sort of Usenet administrator, which she wasn't. It was just an illegal attempt. And it was, my question at the time was, what does this organization have to hide that so bad that they've got to try to curtail free speech on the internet? And now,
You know, a lot of people came into the fight just as Bob did at that moment when they tried to get rid of alt religion Scientology. He was a free speech advocate, and so many others started paying attention to Scientology at that point.
you know, Scientology has declared an all-out war on the internet, and Scientology is now sort of facing their own high-tech lynching on the internet as a result of having declared this war.
Okay, all right. So you and your group were upset that Scientology
There wasn't any group here.
Well, you said you represented the organization you were with for internet free speech, you mentioned.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine.
Right. Although you felt that they were interfering with internet free. Beyond that issue, though, you have spent $2 million over the last 3 years fighting the Church of Scientology.
That's right. Well, most of that money has been spent in the last 2 years.
Okay, so how did it go from a dispute over, free speech on this internet news group into this wide-ranging attack that you've launched against the church?
Well, in an attempt to find out more about Scientology, I started reading about the experiences of people who had actually been in the organization and read plenty of the news media that was available. And I was absolutely appalled at the way this organization destroyed people's lives.
Now, by the way, I ought to point out we invited some people from the Church of Scientology on, and they backed out at the last minute, but they're free to call in and rebut anything that they, want to rebut.
Right.
I'm not taking any sides here because I don't know too much about the church. I'm interested in what's got you so crazy about it.
So you said they did what to people?
Well, I've traveled all over the United States, and I've met a lot of former Scientologists, and it's sort of like a trail of tears across the United States, people whose lives have been shattered as a result of having spent, years and years in Scientology.
How so?
Well, one of the key things, there's a couple up in Seattle named Vaughn and Stacy Young whose whole life was basically under attack by Scientology. They tried to close down a cat rescue sanctuary that they had by complaining to neighbors and essentially trying to destroy their life. And they ended up in litigation with Scientology. Scientology has constantly tried to...
Well, wait, what did these two former Scientologists do to upset the church?
They spoke out against Scientology.
Okay, so
When people speak out against Scientology, what is the largest objection they seem to voice?
how could you summarize it for us?
Well, basically what a fraud Scientology is.
And fraud.
and that
Well, how's it a fraud? I mean, aren't all religions you could attack as frauds?
well,
But if you choose not to believe anymore in whatever their tenet of faith is or whatever their belief is.
yes, well, Scientology is a particularly bad fraud in the sense that you have to spend about $190,000 or $200,000 before you find out the central tenet of Scientology.
That, by the way, is the cat that hates to be held. So she was saying treats, treats, treats. And I took that moment to torture her by showing her to you. And I hope the meows were caught on the mic here, Sheila.
And at this point, you have been subjected to so much mind control techniques within the Church of Scientology that you would believe anything.
Hey, no, Bob was never in Scientology. And he just explained how he was a free speech activist who, when Scientology tried to get rid of alt religion Scientology on the internet, that's how they poked him with a stick, and then he started fighting back over that.
No, I guess I'm not. I'm personally not sympathetic for people like that. If somebody wants to turn over that amount of money and allow their minds to be scrambled in that way, it's like, well, if that's what you want to do with your life, go right ahead.
Well, the thing about it, though, is that Scientology portrays itself as being this wonderful religion that rescues people and frees people's spirits so that they can become, a higher level of spiritual being.
Some public people are happy about it. I mean, Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Lisa Marie Presley, they're publicly campaigning for it. Do you think they're brainwashed?
Travolta is totally hooked on this. Kirstie Alley, you might have seen her on 2020 the other night. The woman is, using the typical Scientology line that their detective agency within Scientology uses, that if anybody goes after you or criticizes you, they're a criminal. You've got to find their crimes. You've got to go after them. You've got to destroy them.
All right. So this is a big difference between somebody who's a crackpot Christian and a crackpot Scientologist, is that the Scientologists, you say, fight back and try to destroy their critics.
They not only fight back and try to destroy their critics, they completely try to subvert the will of those within Scientology so that they become basically automatons who are rondroids, as they're called within Scientology.
Okay, so yes, Anonymous was upset about free speech and them pulling the video off. When Bob got involved, it was 95, and Anonymous was 2008. So not exactly the same time, but same idea.
Well, that's why I want to get you specific, because, everybody who has a strong belief in any church is brainwashed to a certain extent, usually by their parents when they're growing up. Most people...
Their religious indoctrination.
Yeah, most
People are the religion that they grew up with.
Yeah. Every Catholic out there would have been a Jew if they grew up Jewish, and vice versa. So everybody's brainwashed from childhood to some extent.
Yes.
So that's why I'm wondering what is the difference between the brainwashing of a Scientologist compared to the brainwashing of anybody else.
Right. Talking to Robert Minton. We'll be back with more of him. He's had a 3-year battle going with the Church of Scientology, in which he spent $2 million of his own money to support church enemies who are just harassed and bothered when they speak out against the church.
We come back, we'll talk specifically about the Lisa McPherson case.
Thank you. Yes, so Dave is asking, is it true that Scientologists are not allowed online? No, they can go online. If there's something critical about Scientology, they're not supposed to look at it. Most Scientologists would never even bother Googling it. And back in the late 90s, they did distribute what was called a net nanny. They sent out a CD to every Scientologist alive, all 20,000 of them or so, and said, hey, we want you to put up a website. This will create a little website for you with your favorite hover quotes and all that kind of stuff. What the Scientology didn't tell them is it was going to put this filtering program on the computer. So if they did try to look up something critical, it would knock them offline completely. No, if it was bad enough, if it was something incredibly critical, like maybe the death of Lisa McPherson, boom, the net would go down. At any rate, most Scientologists can go online, not Sea Org members. They don't really have access to it. They're working and studying all day. But the filter, they put their own filters on, so they wouldn't look at anything critical, because it would just make them get in trouble when something like that, some doubt, shows up on the meter. Yes, Tori did talk about the net nannies, but no, it was not only for OSA, it was for everyone. In fact, if you were part of OSA, you probably were unfiltered because you needed to know everything, and you were doing dirty tricks yourself. So kind of hard to hide the bad stuff about Scientology from the people who are doing the bad stuff. All right. Go on.
This is the John and Ken Show with Robert Minton, who has spent 3 years and $2 million fighting the Church of Scientology, explaining that you can't criticize the church before they come slashing back at you, making your life miserable. And some colorful stories you got to get into. We're also going to have somebody from the Church of Scientology on at the bottom of the hour. Robert, let me call you. You're really into this Lisa McPherson case. Let me read to everybody what we got from the Associated Press. Okay. He's a Scientologist who died near Clearwater, Florida in 1995 after a 17-day stay at a Scientology hotel, allegedly against her will. McPherson died of a blood clot caused by dehydration and bed rest, according to the medical examiner's report. And last month, the Church of Scientology was charged with abuse or neglect of a disabled adult, unauthorized practice of medicine. They have pleaded innocent. No trial has been set. And you are quoted in the AP story as saying that Lisa's incarceration was part of a punishment procedure designed to correct someone's mental instability.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, this happens all the time in the Church of Scientology now. When people start to question their belief in Scientology, Scientology thinks they're mentally aberrated, as they call it. And they get into this situation where they have to be isolated in order to correct this mental aberration that Scientology thinks has occurred in their mind because they're rejecting Scientology.
Well, Robert, then nobody has ever left the Church of Scientology and not been stalked, bothered. Never happened?
Nobody who's ever spoken out against the practices inside Scientology has been left alone. And
Well, you don't know that for sure. You don't. How you would know that for sure either?
well, I don't, 100% for sure. No, I can't say that. But anybody who criticizes Scientology is attacked.
All right, what have they done to you? I mean, you ended up firing shots into the air to disperse Scientology protesters. What was that story about?
Well, let me just mention a couple of things. Scientology. When I was a teenager, I was put into a mental institution after my father and mother broke up, and I had a lot of problems with my father. For 4 days. The Scientologists believe that during that 4-day stay in a mental institution, that I was implanted with a secret command by the American Psychiatric Association to destroy Scientology. They think this is what this is all about.
Who do they tell this to?
I've got it on videotape from this incident in front of the Church of Scientology. They're saying he's a PDH case. PDH is an internal Scientology phrase for this.
All right. But when you come out with a gun, you start firing shots over their head. That plays into.
Well, you're right. Look, you got to understand, these guys were on my property. They trespassed. I told them to get off, and they did. What'd they do? They went down the road, got their car, and came back and drove onto my property then, 200 feet away up in a field next to my barn. I wasn't kidding when I told them to get off. You got to understand, this is an organization who says that their enemies should be destroyed. I have been declared their public enemy number one. I wanted them to know that I wasn't fooling around. I wanted them off my property.
Well, all right. Since they apply so much pressure, why not back off and go away? I mean, people want to get into Scientology, and it turns out badly for them. Isn't that their business?
It is their business, but at the end of the day, somebody has a responsibility to try to do something about this. I fortunately was blessed with enough money by doing some pretty good in business to have the funds to help people fight these guys.
Is it true you were in a mental institution yourself?
Well, as I said,
He
for
just
those
told
4
you
days
that.
when I was a teenager, my father, he just didn't know how to deal with me after we got into an argument one night.
And he put you in the institution.
Yeah.
And my parents threatened to do that to me once. I can understand that.
Well, it wasn't a very pleasant thing.
We got 30 seconds. Briefly, what do you think they did to Lisa McPherson in Clearwater?
They held her against her will based on their own logs. They had people watch her 24 hours a day who were ordered not to talk to her. Those people decided not to trust their own judgment. They saw this.
She died of a blood clot.
Yeah, but this woman lost 40 some odd pounds over the 17 days. They had to force feed her. They put her on medication to make her sleep all the time. And yet she would fight back against them. She wanted to get out of that place and they wouldn't let her.
All right, hang on. We're going to have somebody from the Church of Scientology coming up next when we return.
And more of Robert Minton, who's declared war on that church. This is the John and Ken Show.
They asked, hey, Bob, what's Scientology ever done to you? And it reminded me that during the LMT years, one of the people who worked there at the LMT, Ingrid, was put in charge of creating a running log of everything that they have done, all the nasty things they did to Bob. And she was working on that. It was, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entries. And Bob asked me for a favor. And it wasn't. She asked me for a favor. She wanted me to. I was working late at night. She wanted me to do her a favor and send her the email that she was using to write this thing. And I sent it to her with the headline, favor fulfilled. Except I didn't send it to her. I posted it on Alt Religion Scientology. And I instantly knew, oh my God, that's why I stopped using Outlook, because you'd have, your mail and the news group were in the same app. And so I stopped doing that. But that caused him so much trouble because he was constantly being called into depositions by Scientology. And he had to go through and respond to all these hundreds and hundreds of things. Man, yeah, I was a big help there at the LMT. Anyway, and then later we just put that finished one up as a timeline of harassment onto the news group and onto our website at the time as well. And I'm sure I've got a copy of it somewhere, but pretty remarkable how they followed him around the world. And we included all the different flyers that they passed around about him and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty impressive. Not as impressive as John Carmichael. John Carmichael is impressive in a terribly different, evil way. And he's about to show up.
This is the John and Ken Show. We've been talking with Robert Minton, who is a millionaire, and he has spent $2 million over the last 3 years fighting the Church of Scientology, claiming that
ultimately $10 million.
No one is ever allowed to criticize the church without having their lives invaded and being attacked and harassed. And he's defending, I guess, the First Amendment freedom of speech right that people should have to criticize a church. And he claims that the Church of Scientology conducts these vicious campaigns against ex-members and critics.
And the particular case he talked about, and we talked about, was Lisa McPherson, who died in 1995 after a 17-day stay at a Scientology hotel. Her death was apparently of a blood clot caused by dehydration and bed rest, and he felt that she was incarcerated by Scientology. Now, we got the Church of Scientology with a representative here on the line, Reverend John Carmichael in New York. Welcome to the John and Ken Show.
Why, thank you very much. Hey, listen, let me just start right off. I've heard Robert Minton's rap a number of times. this guy seems to think that just because he can get on a radio show and he's got millions of dollars, he can say whatever he likes. The fact is, the Church of Scientology has its own history, and it's the history of defending the rights of people. We defended the right to black in South Africa at a time when it was a dangerous thing to do. We published Information Act material. And he has no such history at all.
Well, that's getting off the track. What we're talking about, he's claiming that, and I've seen these charges before. He's not the first or the only guy to say this, that if an ex-member speaks out against the church, their lives become a living hell. And that there's something called, what's the phrase that he used? The fair game rule you guys have.
You know, he has the he can say these things, but actually, people leave the church when they want to, and the people that he's talking about, the people that he's paid money to, the people whose work he's supported, aren't people who had their free speech threatened. Their free speech wasn't threatened at all. These were people who on the internet who were violating church copyright, and when these people took their case to court, the Church of Scientology said, hey, we didn't threaten their free speech. And the judge said, you know, you're right. And one of them, Chief Henson, ended up paying $7,000 for what he'd done.
What is the
We're talking about the court. The court decided this question. These people made their plea in front of the court.
What is the church about? What is it? Because Ken and I don't know a whole lot about the church. Do you guys have a God that you believe in? Is it set up like the regular Christian churches at all?
Let me explain about that. Scientology is an applied religious philosophy. That is to say, it's a philosophy people use. And there are literally millions of people around the world who use the philosophy of L. Ron Hubbard that founded Dianetics and Scientology to improve their lives, to become happier, to regain their basic self-respect, to succeed in the things they're trying to succeed in.
So it's not a belief in a deity?
No, not per se. So that a person of any religion, a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, can also be part of Scientology and use Scientology's technique to come to a spiritual awareness. So you can have to help their family, to help the people around them to succeed in what they, as I say, in the thing.
So you can go to a Catholic church or Episcopal church on Sunday, and you could still be a Scientologist and go through the process of absorbing the philosophy.
Exactly, because Scientology is about about techniques that people can use. Well, why themselves to apply?
Why is your organization always seems to be under attack from somebody or other? And it's always including the entire German government. I mean, they call you a cult, that you use psychological practices to get mind control on people. Why does this keep coming up?
You know, I think it's a matter of cultural lag. The fact is that Scientology is maybe ahead of its time. You know, when L. Ron Hubbard talked about Dianetics in his first book, Dianetics and Modern Science and Mental Health, he was talking to people who were undergoing in 1950, things were pretty regimented. And he was here saying that you can become something more, that you can take control of your own life, that you don't need psychiatry, that you don't need drugs, that you don't need everybody to tell you what to do. Scientology doesn't try to tell people, here's your problem, here's what you should do, here's what's wrong with you. Scientology and Dianetics help people become more able to solve their own problems.
All right, what can you tell us about Lisa McCoy?
He got into a scuffle outside of a church.
Oh, no.
With
Sorry.
Well, why else to apply?
Why is your organization always seem to be under attack from somebody?
Okay.
This
Here we
woman,
go.
when she was alive, help people become more drugs. You don't need everybody to tell you what to do. Scientology doesn't try to tell people, here's your problem, here's what you should do, here's what's wrong with you. Scientology.
Okay. The reason I was trying to stop it there is Scientology will tell you what's wrong with you after you've paid enough money. They'll tell you you were blown up in a volcano 75 million years ago by an evil overlord named Xenu, and you're covered with body thetans. So they do tell you what's wrong with you, just not right away. And Christian, Muslim, Jew, your money's good here. You're all welcome. Come and get rid of your body thetans.
And Dianetic help people become more able
Okay.
to solve their own problem.
All right, what can you tell us about Lisa McPherson, the woman that died in 1995?
Well, I'm not going to comment too much on that because it's in the court, but I'll tell you this. Bob Minton never knew this girl. Bob Minton, if he had seen this woman when she was alive, would have said the same sort of obscene thing that he does to Scientologists when he demonstrates outside the church as a regular thing. That's the thing that really stings me about Minton is that it's his hypocrisy. He comes on, he starts talking about what a family man, what a crusade he's on, and so forth. The fact is, here's a guy who's basically unstable, who's then violent, who beat up his former wife, who shot shotgun at Scientologists peacefully.
All right. Let me ask you something. Hold on. I don't understand why do you have protest groups around his house? He criticizes the church, and then there's Scientologists around his house. I mean, he takes a gun out and starts firing shots to get them away. I mean, all churches have their critics. Why not let him say whatever he wants to say? And why the protest groups?
Well, this is what I'm talking about, hypocrisy. He talked about it, didn't tell you criticism. This is a man who tried to physically force his way into the church, who has intimidated and pushed on.
But the question was, why do you have protesters around his house?
We went up there to say, let's talk. And he fired a shotgun at him.
How come you don't want to be on the air with him now to debate it? You requested to be on separately.
No, I didn't request to be on separately. I requested to get our say because he's been on for half an hour saying whatever he wants to say because he got $1 million. Well, that's all. But isn't it time? And you guys chose, and quite wisely, to get the opposite point of view.
All right. Are there no ex-Scientologists who have criticized the church and have been harassed by other members of the church for airing the criticisms? Doesn't exist?
I found that. And look, let's be real specific about this. Anybody can leave the Church of Scientology. People do it.
All right, and then if that let me pose hypothetically here. Somebody leaves the Church of Scientology, then goes on TV and says, "Oh my God, they're a bunch of nuts. They do mind control. It's a cult. It's weird. People are intimidated." If they went and said that, they wouldn't be harassed. Their lives wouldn't be torn apart.
No, their lives wouldn't be torn apart. We would be interested. We might check it. We might be interested in why they were saying these things because, those things aren't true. And I'm not just saying that. There are millions of Scientologists around the world.
All right, obviously, there's millions of Scientologists who are happy, but there's also a small number who are unhappy. And I guess the basic charge here that Minton and other critics have levied is that you're not allowed to say anything negative about the Church of Scientology, ex-member or non-member. They'll come and get you if you air your criticisms publicly.
No, there's no matter of coming to get anybody, and we haven't come to get anybody at all. We have looked into people and said, hey, why are people doing these things? You talk about free speech. People went up and fired Bob Minton's house. They were exercising their right of free speech peaceably.
Did you hire a private detective?
Respond to when people lie about them.
Did you hire private detectives to investigate them?
Sorry?
Did you hire private investigators to investigate?
Know what was going on. I didn't personally hire any private investigators, so I'm hardly the one to speak about that. If we did, I think that would be entirely simple. What is this? What is the man's game? What is he involved in? For instance, here's a man who
I asked him that, and he said that he's standing up for people to express their freedom of speech, that he's trying to defend ex-members who get psychologically brutalized by you guys when they criticize the church.
Well, let's talk specifics. I mean, he can say generalities. Well,
Can I get him on the air and have him air specific?
Well, you want to tell you who he supported.
He's got a couple in Washington who ran some sort of cat shelter. He said. So can we talk? Could I put him on the air? We talk about this?
Well, yes, but I can tell you exactly who we're talking about.
Okay, all right. Well, let me put him on the air as long as it's okay with you. I don't want to, blindside anybody. Robert, why don't you tell your story about the couple you mentioned up in Washington?
Yes, let's talk about safety.
Let's talk two points first. There are not millions of members in the Church of Scientology.
Wait a second. I want you to talk about this. Specific. I want the
audience to understand a specific case and make their judgments based on whatever you guys say.
Okay.
Robert,
Here's a couple up in Seattle.
Safety, shall we?
Here's a couple up in Seattle, Washington. I'm trying to say this. Here's a couple up in Seattle, Washington, whose lives was made miserable because they decided they were the highest ranking members of Scientology to leave for many years. They started giving evidence in court cases against Scientology. Scientology sent detectives out. They beat up their dog. They tried to get their shelter closed. I'm telling you, these Scientologists are insane.
did any of this stuff make court? Is there documentation for these charges?
There is.
Is it in court? Is it a court case?
It is not a court case.
Why not?
Beat up his dog. Come on, where's the documentation? You send in the documentation.
Well, why is it in a court case?
Well, you got a detective working for the Church of Scientology named David Lee, who has a team of detectives who goes up to West Seattle and goes around and starts talking to all the neighbors. The Scientologists then get their own people in the church to start moving into the neighborhood to complain to the local animal control shelter or animal control unit in Seattle that these people are harboring too many cats in their shelter. The Church of Scientology
You're saying the church moved their members into the neighborhood so they could complain that these two ex-Scientologists were running a bad shelter and were harming animals.
Some of their members and some of the detectives rented houses there who were working for Scientology. They did this to try to get these people kicked out of the neighborhood, to get their cat shelter shut down. Okay, and I bought them a house on an island in Puget Sound so they could have their cat shelter in peace.
Okay, Reverend John Carmichael.
And by the way, it sounds insane that Scientology would have Scientologists move into their neighborhood. But that's not unique. They did that to Marty Rathbun. They rent homes nearby so they can set up surveillance. They had somebody living across the street from Aaron Smith Levin for a long time. They had people move here to Clearwater who said, okay, you want us here, we'll come. Not necessarily to be, monitoring me or anything, but to vote against me, for one. People just can't understand how a group like this can go so far as to have people move into your neighborhood from another state entirely.
What's your response?
Can I respond to that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bob was talking about this on TV a couple of times. He was telling about what a nice thing he was doing for Stacy Young, who was the female part of this affair. As it turns out, he was having an affair with Stacy Young and went on to have an affair with Stacy Young. And Stacy is regularly on the picket line with Bob instead of his wife or his two daughters who don't know about this thing going on. And he's very public about it.
All right. We'll get to the affair in a minute. Hang on a second, okay? I want to find out about another charges.
We got Robert Minton, who's carrying on a $2 million 3-year war against the Church of Scientology. We got the Reverend John Carmichael defending the Church of Scientology from New York City. The main charge is that anybody who criticizes the church has their lives torn apart by detectives.
Investigated, stalked, protested, etc.
We'll talk more when we come back. This is the John and Ken Show. This is the John and Ken Show. We continue with Robert Minton and the Reverend John Carmichael. The Reverend Carmichael's from the Church of Scientology. Robert Minton is a fierce critic of the church. He's carried on a 3-year, $2 million campaign claiming that ex-members and outside critics have their lives torn apart and turned upside down by private investigators and detectives who wreak havoc on their lives. Minton said nobody is allowed to criticize the church in this country without the Church of Scientology coming back and making your life miserable. We were talking about a specific couple up in the Seattle area who were ex-Scientologist members. They publicly criticized the church, and Minton said their what is it? Sort of like kind of a humane shelter that they ran,
Animal shelter.
animal shelter that they ran. Detectives moved into the neighborhood, rented houses, started claiming.
From the church everywhere.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now, Mint. All right. Let's Mr. Reverend Carmichael. Let's address it. He says that members of a church and detectives invaded the neighborhood, rented out houses, made these people's lives a hell, tried to close down their animal shelter. What do you know of this story?
I think I will tell you this. Well, I've known Stacy and Vaughn Young a lot longer than Bob Minton has. They left the church on perfectly good terms. Only when they couldn't make any money doing something outside did they turn to lying about the church. The thing that all of his story is a smokescreen for the fact that the people that he is bankrolling.
Well, is this story true or not?
No. Listen, it's so nutty. It's so nutty that I've got to ask whether Minton has is on psychiatric medication.
So it's an entirely false story, made up by the two people in Seattle and Robert Minton here.
The whole thing, listen, and I want to make this really clear. He has got a lot of money supporting people who lose in court. And they told the story in court, and they lose because when a judge and a jury hears this stuff.
Well, was this case in court? Was it case in court?
I'm sorry?
Was this case in court?
No, court is not in court. There's nothing to go to court. The fact is that he bankrolled a guy named Arnie Lerma. He lost in court. He lost. Keith Anson lost in court.
Robert, have you won any court cases financing these ex-Scientology members?
Well, first of all, I'm not out to win court cases, but yes, I have won many victories in court cases, and the one that I will win the biggest in terms of getting the truth out about Scientology is the Lisa McPherson case. I am bankrolling the family of Lisa McPherson, and from the time I started doing that, the Church of Scientology said that is the thing that angers them the most. They are going to lose so much in that case in terms of their credibility, that they are. This is why they're so anxious about everything I say. They don't, people don't interview the Church of Scientology. People interview critics of the Church of Scientology, and the Church of Scientology reacts because they are a reactionary group. They are a totalitarian group. John Carmichael knows nothing about what goes on in Scientology. He is a low-level Scientologist who administers the only sacrament the Church of Scientology has, and that's lying.
Whoa, Bob Minton, for somebody who's never been in a Church of Scientology, you certainly talk big. But let's be very
I am running out of time right here.
Let's be very specific
Okay.
about
Hold on. Just hang on right here, okay? Just hold on.
Robert Minton and the Reverend John Carmichael from the Church of Scientology and the big Scientology debate.
We're out of time right now. This is the John and Ken Show. This is the John and Ken Show. Welcome to the program. If you want to email us, it's john-ken@primenet.com, john-ken@primenet.com.
We have a couple of guests here, and it's all about the Church of Scientology. If you're particularly what they do to people that have left the church and criticize what has gone on.
So if you're just checking in with us, we're going to briefly summarize what's going on here. We have Robert Minton. He is a millionaire from New Hampshire who has spent $2 million of his own money in the last 3 years attacking the church. Also on the show is the Reverend John Carmichael representing the Church of Scientology. He's from New York City. Minton's claims are that any ex-member of the church or outside critic has their lives turned upside down through intimidating tactics. Private detectives and investigators get into your life, protests around your house. You're just made miserable until you shut up and promise never to speak ill again.
Now, the Church of Scientology claim that we're hearing through Reverend John Carmichael is that Minton has a lot of money. This gets him some publicity, but he really is crazy and certainly on the wrong track and hasn't had any real court cases that he's won on this, although Minton claims otherwise. Now, the big case they're discussing is the death of a woman
Now, when they say that Bob spent $2 million attacking Scientology, that's not really true. He spent $2 million at that point defending people who were being attacked by Scientology, including Arnie Lerma, Dennis Ehrlich, and Bob Penny, who had their homes raided by Scientology over documents, Scientology documents that were put on the net. And, you know, Bob came to their defense. Not a cheap thing. And so many other people whose cases that he paid for, including mine when I was arrested in Chicago. You know, he paid the bill for that. You know, it's not like he had some sort of war going on. He was trying to make sure that everyone had a chance to get their story out.
Florida. Lisa McPherson, Scientologist, she died near Clearwater in 1995 after a 17-day stay at a Scientology hotel, allegedly against her will. Minton told the Associated Press that McPherson's incarceration was part of a punishment procedure designed to correct someone's mental instability. Had she had the opportunity to see not only a medical doctor, but also a psychiatrist, she might be alive today. McPherson, according to the AP, died of a blood clot caused by dehydration and bed rest. They quoted the medical examiner's report. Last month, the Church of Scientology entered an innocent plea for charges of abuse or neglect of a disabled adult, an unauthorized practice of medicine. No trial yet. Now, specifically, the Scientologists have defended itself against Minton by hiring private detectives to investigate his life, passing out flyers denouncing him, rallying outside his home in New Hampshire. At one demonstration in July, Minton fired shots into the air after asking protesters to leave his property. No charges were filed.
However, he does face charges in a separate incident in which they claim he assaulted and beat a church member. But the thing is really...
In fact, the police looked at the videotape of that.
Now, if you were with me last night, I played you a video of that incident from Scientology's cameras. And the only thing that Bob did after he was slapped, and that tape wasn't turned over, about the broken stick that he had his picket sign on, he tossed at the guy. You can see it. You can hear how small it is. You can hear it hit the ground and go dinky dinky. There's no way that there was any actual harm done with that little stick. But Bob's a criminal. Oh my God! Gotta have the police arrest him. Yeah. No.
And so I've seen the videotape, and it's pretty clear that he slammed Frank Goffman over the head with a stick.
This is the Reverend John Carmichael. Robert Minton saying the charges have been dropped?
That's correct.
That's right. They were definitely dropped in exchange for the judge got his promise that if he should decide to come out in front of the church, that he would let us know beforehand, warn us, and write in writing. And put in writing the fact that his protest was going to be picket, that it was going to be peaceful protest. Because frankly, Mr. Minton's history is not one of peaceful protest.
All right.
If you want to put credit,
Scientology to get it.
you want to put.
Hold on. First of all, we can't have you guys talking over each other because then nobody understands it. Let me ask Robert Minton. You admit to firing shots, over the heads of the protesters. And apparently, it's clear that you started beating a guy
After I had been slapped in the face by the guy,
Okay.
for self-defense.
All right. What I'm saying is you're calling these people nuts, and it sounds like you've got a streak of this too. You're nuts too. true.
I'm totally nuts, because nobody who gets involved in this against the Church of Scientology has got it all there.
All right, now,
To go after these guys.
yeah, but people don't threaten the Scientologists with an axe and throw rocks at their car. They don't push women Scientologists around. That's not what people do.
Are you doing that, Rob?
Have some criticism.
You went after them with an axe and threw rocks at them?
And a sledgehammer, yes?
The guy in front of the Boston Church of Scientology was hit with a balsa wood stick that weighed.
No. We're talking about axes. These sledgehammers. Come on, talk about it, Bob.
I mean, this man, John Carmichael, is totally certifiable.
All right. Look, okay. All right. I have an idea.
Yeah, I have an idea. Let's get off that for a minute because I have no idea who's telling the truth. All right.
What I wanted to do, hold on, please, because I want you guys to get your say, but one person has to talk at a time, or nobody's going to be able to listen to this.
Okay.
We were talking before about a Seattle couple, right, who ex-Scientologists criticized the church, and Robert Minton, you say that their lives were invaded by these private detectives, that these investigators rented homes to harass this couple in their animal shelter, and their animal shelter was they tried to destroy it by reporting the animal shelter to authorities.
All kinds of violations. Yeah.
Okay, basically harassment. Now, we kind of got off the track before, but the Reverend Carmichael says that this is completely untrue, that you're a mental patient and you made all this up. Is there any proof of this? Can you get this couple on the air with us to explain?
Yeah, well, I could actually, if you. Well, I don't know whether I can get the couple. I had the one.
Because you're sleeping with the wife and the husband is somewhere else.
This has come up, Robert. Is that true?
What did he say?
He says you're sleeping with the wife of this Seattle couple.
Well, let me. There's a little bit of truth.
Now, a little bit of truth. Here's my problem here. Every time I ask whether Minton's charges are true, you say Minton is sleeping with Stacy, the woman in this story.
Yeah.
But all right, that's true too. But that's really got nothing to do with whether the Scientologists hired private investigators to invade the neighborhood. Is that true, Reverend Carmichael?
Let me make it real clear. We did not invade the neighborhood. We have had private investigators look into Mr. Minton and also into the Youngs. There's good reason for that, because these are people who left the church in good standing, and then at some time after some years, after they couldn't make any money any other way, decided that they were going to try to make it by lying about the church. Okay, we wanted to know why.
Now, what's their name? Wait, hold on. Stacy Young and the husband's name is what? Vaughn. Okay. Stacy and Vaughn Young say horrible things about the Church of Scientology. What sort of horrible things did they say, Reverend, that caused the church to hire investigators?
Well, roughly the sort of things that Minton is saying. He's already said it. It's the same stuff that rolls around. They were willing to say just about anything as long as they were being paid.
So what specifically is their charge? What is their charge, to your knowledge?
Let me give you a charge. Give me a charge. Vaughn Young just gave testimony in a court case in Colorado with FactNet, a company or a corporation that's a nonprofit that I am a board of director member of, where the whole Scientology copyrights are called into question. Vaughn Young and another fellow named Jesse Prince together have been involved in meetings within the Church of Scientology where they acknowledged that their copyright had expired,
All right, copyrights don't. All right, a copyright dispute is really not all that interesting here. What I'm talking about, Reverend Carmichael, did the Youngs say that the church is that the church is a cult, that you practice mind control and everything?
Wait a minute. The copyright story isn't that interesting. Well, if you had let Bob go on to explain how these folks' homes were raided over this copyrighted material, it would have been a little more interesting. But go ahead. Cult question.
Everybody, that people are emotionally and psychologically abused inside the cult. Is it those kind of charges?
Well, for instance, they tried to claimed on the TV the other day that they had to flee from the church. They walked out of the church. People shook their hands.
Reverend Carmichael, you claim they're doing this because their animal shelter business is not doing well. Are they looking for money from you? Why would they turn against the church then?
Oh, they turned against the church before that because they weren't making any money at anything. The animal shelter thing, the animal shelter thing is a complete red herring. It's not. I could tell it has to do with the fact that Minton wanted the guy's bite.
So you think that also Minton was going to bankroll them to get money from him? Would that help their financial problems? I'm trying to figure out where their money trail goes.
Here's what I don't understand. I've done a lot of shows on religion. I'm an ex-Catholic, and I talk about how much animosity I have towards the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church never sent investigators to my house. There's a lot of people who criticize religion. What I don't understand, Reverend Carmichael, is whatever these ex-Scientologists say about your church, why not let it roll off? All the other churches let it roll off. Other churches are condemned in America every day by their ex-members, and the leaders of the church shrug and say, well, they're wrong, but we can live with the criticism. Why do the Scientologists get into the private investigator stuff?
Did I answer that question, Daniel? Clearly?
Go ahead.
Here's the answer. People criticize the Church of Scientology, and there's no problem. The people that he's talking about criticized the Church of Scientology, and nobody gave them any trouble at all. The people that he bankrolled had they had their First Amendment right. They carried on in obscene detail about how they didn't like the church. It was only when violating the law.
What sort of obscene detail? Use the word obscene.
Give us the details.
What's the obscene detail, John? I want to hear the story. I really do. Give us the obscene detail.
I cannot, literally things that cannot be said on the air. And
Try it. I got a delete button here.
Well, I'll give you an example.
That's what I'll
Here's an example of Bob Minton with his demonstration, with his highbrow intellectual demonstration in front of the Church of Scientology. I'm effing your mama. I'm effing your mama, and that is why your hair is so curly, boy.
That's part of his demonstration.
That's part of his demonstration.
No, it's not.
That's his criticism of the church.
I think that was Jesse.
I got it.
I'm completely lost here.
I am completely lost. All right, let me try another tactic. Would you guys be willing to take calls from the people of the
Pro and con in your position.
Let me answer his last charges.
All right, give you 30 seconds.
All right, effing your mama. You saying that stuff outside of their...
No. Let me tell you, this church uses... We're a Catholic. You go in and you confess your sins to a priest. They do that in Scientology. They write it down in a folder. The folder is used against you when you leave the Church of Scientology. Everything you ever...
You have no proof of that, and it's not true.
That is totally true. That is one of the biggest...
We have critics and supporters all lined up on the phone. We'll get some fresh material in here because I think I've hit the end of the line on this stuff. Robert Minton, he is the big critic against the Scientologists. He has spent $2 million in 3 years fighting them. The Reverend John Carmichael has been deputized by the Church of Scientology to defend the church here on the air with us.
Minton is just plain nuts.
We're going to take calls from you guys as soon as we come back. This is the John and Ken Show.
So they mentioned the Catholic Church. You can say horrible things about the Catholic Church and no repercussions. We were shocked in 2002 when there was one of the big scandals with the Catholic priests and the kids having sex. And in the newspaper story in the Boston Herald, they told how the Catholic Church was doing what Scientology was doing, having PIs following around the people who were making those charges. And we were kind of stunned to see that. Anyway, I just thought I'd toss it in there because it's kind of interesting. All right, back to the show.
This is the John and Ken Show with Robert Minton. He is a millionaire who's angry with the Church of Scientology, and he's spending millions attacking it over the last 3 years. Also, Reverend John Carmichael defending the Church of Scientology. This is a church that has a lot of celebrities attached to it, like John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, and Lisa Marie Presley. And some critics say it's a weird cult that practices mind control. And Minton is claiming that critics who leave the church are severely harassed by private investigators.
for airing their views. And of course, the Reverend Carmichael says that's nonsense. Let's get some calls in. Paul, you're on the John and Ken show.
Hi, John. I'm just going to tell you my story so I don't sound like I'm for or against the church. I was in New York a few years ago with a friend, and we're coming out of a club at about midnight. We passed by the store, and it said free personality test. So I said, oh, let's go in, just for fun. So we go in, we answered about 200 questions, and the guy told me I had suicidal tendencies. And I thought that was very funny. And so he was telling me all this stuff. So I grabbed the papers that he was reading off and I took off, right? So I took off and I start reading the stuff. And basically what they're doing is they have everything written down like a script. And they just read off. Like one part it said, now a customer or client is hanging on ropes. Assure him that everything will be okay. And suggest, say, oh, I can't help you with that, but if you go over there where they sell the books, they can help you with that. I mean, it was just.
Did they say up front they were Scientologists?
Oh yeah, it was the Church of Scientology thing. I just didn't know anything about Scientology then.
Reverend Carmichael, what's that about?
We offer a free personality test, and people take the test, and there is an analysis is done right there of where you're doing well and where you're not doing well.
But a guy I've been off the street and you're telling me suicidal?
Well, I'm pleased to know that he didn't commit suicide. That pleases me. But let me say one thing, and I want to say this really to the audience. I didn't come on this show to argue with Bob Minton. I came on the show because to tell people that if you want to know about Scientology, you're not going to find the answer on a talk show. Come in, find out about it for yourself.
Is it about, we've had you on for a while now. What is it about exactly? I mean, explain it to me like I was interested in joining. What would you tell me?
Read a book. Kelly's right. Simple as that.
Scientology is a philosophy that you use in your life to improve it. If you have some area of your life, whether it's better learning that you want to be able to do, whether it's relationships you want to improve, whether you have a problem with confidence, you feel that you've lost your integrity, what the problem is, you can take some part of Scientology and apply it to that and improve that part of your life.
What was this core philosophy about past lives?
We believe that man is a spiritual being, an immortal spiritual being that has lived before and will live again. And in thinking that, we share the spiritual view that most people around the world do. Nobody is in Scientology required to believe that, but people do as they become more aware of who they really are. They become aware of where they've been. Get a better idea of where they're going, what their real nature is.
Illustrate what Scientology is for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you have over 20 people who were watching Lisa McPherson 24 hours a day while she was held for the 17 days in captivity?
That's preposterous.
That is not preposterous. And writing in the court records in Florida, my dear John.
That it's not what is in the court records in Florida.
Can I finish now?
Yeah, go ahead.
The people who were watching Lisa McPherson saw her waste away in front of their eyes. They did nothing to help her because they were taught not to trust their own judgment. That is the core of Scientology. You trust L. Ron Hubbard's judgment. Everything he says is correct. You do exactly what he says. He's dead. These people watched this woman die. They were taught not to think for themselves. That is what Scientology is.
And this is the woman who was locked up in a Scientology hotel. You saw her 17 days until she died of a blood clot.
We will talk more about that when we come back.
Robert Minton and the Reverend John Carmichael debating Scientology here.
We'll take more calls. This is the John and Ken Show.
I did meet one of the folks who was put on her watch. He had just come into the country, did not speak a word of English, and he was assigned to watch over her. It's devastating when you actually look at the baby watch logs and see how the last 17 days of her life went.
You can email us at john-ken@primenet.com, john-ken@primenet.com. Final segment here with Robert Minton, who is a fierce critic of the Church of Scientology. He spent millions of dollars over the last 3 years attacking it. He's claiming that ex-members who criticize the church publicly have their lives upended, destroyed. They're severely harassed by private investigators. Reverend John Carmichael is from the Church of Scientology.
And they think a lot of these people that are complaining are just put up to it by Minton and his money.
That's that's part of it. And the other thing is, you should know that I even have friends now who were with me in Scientology early. I have one in particular who worked at is a partner at an accounting firm, and he didn't continue with Scientology, and that's fine. And some people go out and they decide they're going to make lawsuits and they're going to try to make $1 million off the Church of Scientology. Encourage pays attention to that.
Can an ex-member go out and say, I think this church is a cult and they practice mind control and they're deceiving people and they're manipulating people? Somebody allowed to say that because other churches allow their ex-members to say that without recriminations?
We don't have any problem with people saying anything. Free speech is this. It's a total red herring. That's not the point. For instance,
so you don't investigate people. You don't investigate people who say those kinds of things.
That people's pretty busy. You just said that sort of thing. That's not the point. When people get in lawsuits and they start suing, when they start lying in public against the Church of Scientology, and when they try to make millions off the church, then our lawyers hire private detectives. Yes, that happens. Not to do anything unreasonable, but to find out what's going on, because we do find out what's going on with people.
Motivation.
What's going on? What's behind them?
Motivation, John. That's what you're looking for, right? Because these people who attack you are totally insane. That's your own policy. L. Ron Hubbard, who was a woman hater, a wife beater, a kidnapper,
A convicted felon, turned and went to the Van Allen belt.
You is a documented one whose wife had to stay on public television that she'd beat her up. You're the one who attacked Scientologists with
Robert, you're a wife beater?
No, that's not correct, and John Carmichael is a liar. But Ron Hubbard has stated publicly that he traveled to Saturn, that he traveled to Venus. If you read Dianetics, you will see that he was a woman hater.
All right, hold on, Larry.
Wife beater.
We're going to get some other callers on. Let me get some callers on here because this is not getting anywhere. Kim, you're on the John and Ken show.
Hey, John and Ken, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
First of all, I'd love to say that
sure.
I'd like to applaud Mr. Minton for speaking out. I think that this is a really frightening organization.
Why?
And, well, because 20 years ago, my brother got involved in Scientology. He was just out of high school, didn't have a lot of money. And when he didn't have money to pay for courses, they sent him home to my parents to ask them for money. And when my parents refused, they sent him home with a contract asking my parents to sign it, saying they would not interfere in my brother's life, which they refused to do. So unfortunately for my brother and my family, he got out of it. But they're just not beyond doing all kinds of...
Why would you have a kid sign a contract or have a kid have his parents sign a contract?
I don't know
Well, I'll tell you why. Because you either have money.
Let John Carmichael go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John Carmichael.
Okay. Nobody asked. It doesn't even make any sense. The church wouldn't do anything like that because it doesn't make any sense. But I want to comment on something that Minton said earlier, because
You want the lady? Wait a second. Hold on. The woman called up and said her brother was asked to spend money for courses, and then the parents were asked to spend money for courses, and then her brother brought a sheet of paper home from the church that the parents were supposed to sign, promising not to interfere in the relationship between the brother and the church. I don't know of any church who does that sort of thing.
I can explain it for you.
name, and I'm not going to add. So I can't tell you what goes on, but I will tell you this. If an individual is underage, he cannot participate in church services without his parents' permission.
Why?
Well, because we don't, because the child has to be of age to be a member of the Church of Scientology as part of our.
You don't want to get hit for slavery charges, right? Let me explain. Why.
Robert Minton, explain now. Chance, Reverend Minton, give in to you.
You either have money and you can pay for your courses in Scientology, or Scientology asks you to join the Sea Org and sign a billion-year contract to work for free or $50 a week for the rest of your life for the Church of Scientology. That's what it boils down to. It's all about money.
So if you don't have money, you have to work off the cost of the feature.
In the Church of Scientology, yes, people receive something of value. They want to give something of value. So people help out one way or another. People can get counseling, but they have to learn to give counseling, for instance. It goes back and forth. And we think that makes a lot of sense. If somebody wants to know what Scientology is, they don't have to listen to Mr. Minton. They don't have to listen to me. They can read the book, What is Scientology, which is on book stands everywhere. They can read Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. And believe me, it won't take very many pages from one of those books or much experience if they walk into a Church of Scientology to know that Mr. Minton is lying.
Okay, well, I have a guy
to evaluate the rest of what he has to say.
Okay, I got a guy who claims to be a lawyer for the church. A guy named Peter Frank who wants to defend the church. You're on the John and Ken show, Peter.
Frank is a private detective. Hello? He's a private detective from England.
Peter Frank?
This is Peter.
Are you a lawyer or a private detective or both?
Oh, I'm a detective. I work for the law firm that has been asked to look into Mr. Minton in London.
This guy is calling from England. He has tried to intimidate my business partners and everybody else who's ever had anything to do with me for the last 30 years.
Peter
Frank is the scum of the earth. No, I don't know.
Peter, where are you calling from?
I'm visiting some friends and family here in Ventura, and I happened to hear Mr. Minton about an hour and a half ago be announced on the radio. I called your screener and told her who I was, and that I've been on hold ever since.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us what you have to say about all this.
Well, I've been investigating Mr. Minton for the past year. I can tell you just about anything you want. I had lunch with him back in November in London when he and Jesse Prince and Jeremy have lunch went to the sports cafe. I sat right next to him and heard just about every word he talked about, and it was quite revealing of what his real plans are for that.
What do you think?
Quite revealing. I had lunch with Bob by sitting at the next table and listening to everything they said.
Minton's motivation is here for criticizing the church and spending so much money against it?
Well, now, I'm an investigator. My job is to look in and find facts and data and turn them over to the law firms and lawyers so they can advise their clients. And I have found a wealth of information about Mr. Minton that points to his violence with his second wife. I interviewed his second wife, Cynthia Wharton, who told me about the beating that she took from him.
Okay, but what does that have to do with his criticisms of the church?
Oh, I'm not. My job is not to investigate his criticisms of the church. My job is to find out about the man, what motivates him, why he's doing this.
What motivates him, Peter?
I think he is a media hound. I think he's an egomaniac, and I think that he's made so much money throughout his life, and he has so many unfulfilled, God, I don't know what, unfulfilled dreams in his life that he's finally found a cause that he could think that he's the white knight he comes tromping in. And I think he throws his money around to get attention and to...
This is very, very... Peter, so odd. I mean,
I'm done.
What?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Robert Minton, go ahead.
Yeah, let me...
Fortunately, Bob was on a white horse. He was a hero.
Let me tell you what Peter Franks has done. Peter Franks has gone to my former business partner in London and my former business partner in South Africa.
Yes,
and
I have.
that if you
don't show them.
and
Said that if you don't stop supporting the phrase, that was.
Let him finish.
Can I answer?
Robert Minton finish.
and saying that if you don't stop supporting this man Bob Minton, we are going to destroy you. And they picketed my partner in South Africa. They picketed the partner in London. They try to destroy his family life in London. They try to destroy the family life of my former partner in South Africa because they are friends of mine, and because they know all the stuff about me that Peter Franks wants to know and will not tell them.
Hello?
Hello?
Bob actually had to sell his half of a dealership, car dealership, to his partner to take the target off his partner's back. He just said, "Okay, it's yours."
Peter, you got a response to this?
I absolutely do. I can tell you that I have I've spoken to Selwyn Lewis many times. I've spoken to
He's the partner from South Africa.
I have on tape, if you would like to hear it, what Jeffrey Schmidt and Selwyn Lewis really say about Mr. Minton.
You know what? I wanted to talk about the Church of Scientology. The personal dirt of all your lives is irrelevant to me.
He's part of the Church of Scientology.
I mean, I don't know if this is what I don't get. This is I don't understand. Is how come it all goes to something that Minton did in his past, and the answers are not to what is the Church of Scientology doing to the people who criticize it.
Okay, John, can I say something for 20 seconds, and I think I can elaborate on that?
Is this Peter Frank?
This is Peter Frank.
Go ahead, Peter.
Let me tell you,
If we're running to the end of time here.
investigated for quite a while. And let me tell you, when somebody like Mr. Minton comes out and makes all these outrageous allegations, my only job is to go out and investigate facts and data and find out about this person. Isn't he a liar? Doesn't he tell the truth? Isn't he faithful to his wife? Isn't he a good businessman? I've spoken to Mr. Minton's business partners.
I don't know what it has to do with the charges about the church, though, but I appreciate what you all be brought in to do. Yeah, I understand that. We're running out of time. Reverend Carmichael, if we ever found, if Minton gave us any Scientologists who'd criticized the church and felt that they paid a price for it from the Scientologist investigators, if we had them on the air, would you come on and talk to them about their charges?
You know, I have no doubt he already has a bunch of people, and they're all part of one group, and he named it earlier, and it's the group that says that if the church pays them millions of dollars, they'll stop talking about the church.
That's not true.
It is. So Jesse Prince and Warren Young and yourself and Spatey are part of a group called FactNet, and that's exactly what they do. They're looking for millions of dollars. And that is the motivation for the other people. Where your motivation is, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Let me tell you why a millionaire does this. Messed over by the Church of Scientology. They have.
Your life has been knocked over by what you're doing with your personal life. And
All right. We're at our time here. Robert Minton, thank you for coming on. Reverend John Carmichael, thank you for coming on.
A pleasure.
All right. Thanks very much. Wow. I have a headache. That is bizarre as I've ever heard. There's moments where it's fascinating, and then they really get into their inter-squabbles, and I can't follow all the names of the people. So, all right. Well, in and out. We got to take a break here. Yeah. This is the John and Ken Show.
All right, there you go. Interesting show. You know, it's seldom that you hear one of Scientology's PIs. You know, normally they try to stay in the background. And Carmichael, you can't expect anything more from him than, you know, speaking trash. I'm sorry, Bob did not have a chance to really get into more of exactly what Scientology does that caused him to continue trying to help people. Anyway, that's what I got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Would he have been told to call? Are you talking about the PI? I'm sure that the PI had complete authority from Scientology to come on and do that. Interesting, says Noam Sane, that the investigator kept using data in a way Scientology always does. I love Carmichael since I am one. Oh, okay. Well, I can't fault you for enjoying the name. Davy Jones says, I think this interview, though, was still very effective because the very conversation as a whole is super weird. Yep, you don't see this happening with any other religion. Well, there probably are some other religions that have been raked over the coals for their stuff as well. You have the Children of God, for example, or as they changed their name to the Family, I believe. This was a group that used flirty fishing, which meant that the young, attractive women in the group were told to go out and have sex with guys they meet to recruit them into the church. And I got to say, that might work for me. But then they also, Dave Berg, who is the head of it, also believed in child sex abuse. And they created like comic books to explain to the parents how to help their son go to sleep through oral sex. Shocking to think that, this happened. And you don't hear much about them anymore, except they're still around. And who is it that grew up in it? There's Rose McGowan. The actress Rose McGowan grew up in that. And that's why she became very outspoken about Scientology and other groups like that. So, Scientology is just much more fun to talk about than the Children of God. And, it continues to be super weird. Thank you so much, Mark. We outside 2025. Does that mean you're going out to picket? Is that what that means? Joaquin and River Phoenix. I'm not sure if they were part of that group, but I do seem to remember that they were part of some wacky group. I'm not sure it's them or not. I mean, the Children of God. But there are plenty of bizarre religions that fall into that cult category that abuse people. And on my channel, you can still find interviews. They're on the old channel, mine, Xenu TV 1. You'll find interviews with folks who are part of this Christian-based cult in Wisconsin, where the one young woman talks about how, as a kid, she was nailed into a pickle barrel over the weekend when she was being punished. And you think, come on, this can't be true. And then I saw another woman on a TV show, a newscast out of Minneapolis, who had been a part of the same group and experienced those same things. So it's amazing the alternate realities that exist without us even realizing it. And Scientology is an easy one to get people intrigued by, because you got Tom Cruise and John Travolta there, and that draws eyeballs. So it helps Scientology recruit, or it did in the past, but it also helps people ask questions. And thank you very much for joining me here tonight. And apparently John Michael still heads up Scientology in New York. People should go by and say hi to Mr. Creepy. Good suggestion, Wrath of Xenu. Aaron's a good example of somebody fighting back against the abuses of Scientology. Davy Jones says they get their hooks into somebody famous, find out their weaknesses, and then provide them with advice in hoping of filming illegal acts to use for blackmail. I'm not sure if that really applies for Scientology. That sounds more like the KGB. But yeah, they they don't have to film them because they get confessions on the meter. I'm not putting that one up. So I'm going to call it a night. I've got more on the way. We may have a couple more radio shows this weekend, but I'll vary it up soon. And as I said in the first version of this video, I think I have been working on this really terrific interview with Ben Corridan, and I cleaned up the sound remarkably well on that, and I'm putting some subtitles on it, so it's going to be another day or two before that one is ready to play. But I think it'll be worth the wait, and I think you'll find it interesting. And I think I will call it a night. So again, thank you everybody for coming here, and thank you for saying bye to the kitties. They they just skulked away. They don't care. They're not very family friendly. Well, I mean, they're not against families, but they're just not sociable. They're cats, for God's sakes. They're napping, as they do all the time. All right. That's it. I think it's time to say goodbye. And I would sing a lovely song, but I don't need to because I've got one right here on tape. Good night, everybody.
What are your crimes, Mark? Yes, what are your crimes, Mark? Your crimes are hidden, they should be seen. Spin all out, Mark, and just come clean.